slavery. Oh, hello.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to Tomorrow Tonight. My name is John with Broadsheet. We're very welcome, or very honoured to have Heber Rowan with us from Sligo. Heber is a public affairs consultant and a Broadsheet columnist. Good evening, Heber.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. We were discussing slavery.
Yes, yes. So, slavery has made a bit of an impact in the discussion of the UK papers. Uh,
No, but you asked me. You said when had slavery been abolished in Britain?
yes, and I looked it up there. It was 1833.
Oh,
So, much later than I had thought, actually.
oh, really? I thought it was kind of earlier than I thought.
Uh, well, I suppose when we think of the modern context and everything else, slavery is basically the backbone of the UK economy and the American economy for that matter. It made them grow a lot faster than what would have happened normally, given the cheap way slavery is for getting labor and the movement of capital all across your country. It has been a big part of the UK's history. The
And now
recent
China has taken on that great mantle.
Yes, so this came up in discussions there last year because a statue of a famous slaver was thrown into
Bristol, wasn't it?
Bristol. Oh yes, Bristol, um, and this has resulted in a further law that said that any destruction on public property, monuments like that, would result in 10 years imprisonment,
Right.
and that's quite a severe sentence when we consider that this is a popular public reaction to a review of what we value now. And uh, when we consider how, for example, I hate to go there, so will, but Germany does ban certain symbols, certain people being celebrated in public life, but that's because
How long should they get? Should they get for throwing statues into the river?
well, uh,
Not 10 years, obviously. But
not 10 years, not
yeah.
10 years, certainly.
Do you feel you don't even feel it's an offence? Is that what you're saying? I mean, if these
Well, I don't think mobs should rule the day and the rest. I think that perhaps, given the vast numbers involved in such kind of actions, it would be kind of impractical to lay a criminal conviction on one person definitively. But the effect is that certainly a kind of custodial sentence would be perhaps out of order, considering that it is primarily a political demonstration against an idea rather
yeah.
than a physical attack on a person. The historical idea of destroying a monument is being discussed, and I don't think that monuments of the past should be totally destroyed and gotten rid of because they are a reminder of the dangers of the past, but also um, not necessarily a celebration of the present. Certainly, they shouldn't be buried underground. They should at least be held in a museum. They should be held in the right context and creation. So, when we consider Britain and its race relations in general,
Mm.
that should be sort of taken in mind. The famous example we could think in the Irish context is how the Irish students in, I believe it was anyway, Galway, they buried the herald of the Queen Victoria of the day after the revolution kicked off. They buried in the backyard, literally just dug a big hole, put the herald of the the Queen in the ground, and
Her copy of
really
the
forgot
Herald.
about it until years later. It was dug up and put at the back of the field for people could see, and that was just there, out of sight, out of mind. But it's still there, and it's better to have it there than completely in the ground. But I think that given proper historical discussions about what is our past, what is race in the case, what are things we like to look with a sense of what have we learned from it, how will we go forward? Pure destruction is not the best way forward.
Right. The Nelson Monument in Collins Street, would you have applauded that when it was blown up, or?
Well, if I was certainly one of the shopkeepers on Collins Street who saw my windows smashed and a lot of my...
Well, actually, apparently that, like the bombers themselves, the guys who did it did a brilliant job, but then the Irish Army came in to finish it, and then they shattered the windows.
Oh yes. Sorry, you're correct. Correct. I even once found on a farm a piece of Nelson's pillar that this farmer quite proudly told me that as a young lad he took from the streets of Dublin that very night. But the point is that the destruction of such a monument like Nelson's pillar, it would be perhaps a statement of the time, given that what we see day to day, the monuments that we have reflect the very, how would I put it, what we value in public life, like what we put up, what we keep up, says a lot because we permit it to be up. So one of the big controversies that is being discussed in Belgium now and then, for example, is King Leopold II around Brussels. He has a lot of statues. King Leopold famously was a big robber baron who enslaved millions and millions all throughout what we now know as the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the DRC.
Zaire and Rwanda.
Yeah, Zaire and the rest. So essentially, he made millions, billions equivalent to this day, and all of that money flowed back into Belgium of today and made the country very, very rich. And that benefited them for a time, but it also was why they completely have a very, very hard discussion yet to happen about their history and their past, about how they got to where they are now. So that's a very, very important thing to have. So is there anything in the papers on this today, John?
Oh yeah, well I'll get to that. I was just wanted to get to the present. Nothing really tonight, except I just wanted to show you this clip from tonight, VMTV, with Jack Chambers and Nora Casey, just about businesses. I think Nora's calling for. Anyway, this is it from tonight.
Can I just mention the business experts are not the centre of that. Politicians and civil.
Can you hear that? Okay.
Now you wouldn't dream.
Yes, I can't see it.
You can't.
Politicians and civil servants, you bring in experts, scientific experts and medical experts. Why don't you have some good, expert, experienced business owners to sit around the table to talk about what does it feel like? Where are you going to get this strategy on cash flow?
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just.
Can I just mention the business experts are not at the centre of that. Politicians and civil servants are. Now you wouldn't dream of having a COVID committee with people who are just politicians and civil servants. You bring in experts, scientific experts and medical experts. Why don't you have some good, expert, experienced business owners to sit around the table to talk about what does it feel like? Where are you going to get the strategy on cash flow? When those policy supports end in June, Jack, there's loads of businesses that will go to the wall.
To be clear, there won't be a cliff edge. And
sorry, where is your magic crystal ball there?
And also,
how do you know there's not going to be a cliff edge? I have no idea why you would even say that.
Well, I would say that because the whole reason government has extended those supports the end of June and perhaps beyond that be a government decision is to do the very thing that you're talking about, is to keep businesses afloat.
The central bank and the ESRI have already said that businesses will go to the wall. Now, I just said to you, yes, there'll be room for startups over the next few years, and so there should be. We should have a plethora of startups, but not at the expense of somebody in a town.
Yeah. Anyway, not sure if that. It's sort of rare. You know, the small businesses are not getting any kind of as much airtime as they really should. You know, in fact, they're very silent, very, very silent, perhaps.
Yes.
Or just they've got Sorry.
Often they're firefighting, I dare say, to stay afloat, to stay alive as a business, and wouldn't have time to be involved in public advocacy like that. Laura Casey, though, she is one of the dragons of Ireland.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Well, she was on the show of potential investors.
Oh, sorry.
No, as in they were called the Dragons.
I know, the Dragon's Den.
As in,
I know.
she was investing in small new startups, businesses. I.e., she's successful. She has great competency in business.
Excellent.
So, but so I would say the thing that really strikes fear into the hearts of many small businesses is, can we continue with the status quo? How long will it go on? What was said there was very, very valid. Seeing no definitive plan of tapering off the supports such as the PUP, the Pandemic Unemployment Payment, the temporary wage subsidy, other schemes like that. With this, we'll make it up as we go type solution is very, very concerning for many who had to plan out potentially against banks, other lenders, and the rest to meet existing debt repayments, costs of goods, and so on and so forth. So it's great to hear the voices heard. So the Irish Examiner.
Well, this is just sort of in relation, I guess. Children's shoe shops or shoe shops can now
go ahead. This on the radio in Ireland today. This has been the big news because the description on Morning Ireland was of black market sales being done in car parks for children's shoes, with 3 or 4 boxes being put out, and the child in the middle of the car park with a mask on trying out some shoes, and then the car is moving away separately as if it's a scene out of Breaking Bad. Really does flavor the imagination, I must say. There is something to be said for it, and given the
also very emotive with Fine Gael's history in terms of John Bruton and VAT on children's shoes. I think that it just has a historical resonance in Ireland.
Yes, absolutely. But I think the reality that the difficulty in raising children in any early years of their lives is challenging. But in the circumstance where you can't provide for them and their needs to walk about, do everything else, and you're worried about their feet being malformed, one thing or the other, which can happen, is a concern. So there has been a win. And Pascal Donoghue tried not to let this go forward, but they quickly backed down. The lobby was very, very swift on this.
That was surprised me. Why would they even think? What were they thinking? You get a Minister of Finance talking about children's shoes. Shouldn't be talking about children's shoes ever. That those two things would never. You know what I mean? It's not
a radioactive third rail, so to speak, of Irish politics.
Well, I mean, it's come on, it's a level of pettiness, that, and also with the Fine Gael kind of history in that department. I thought it was a very huge gaffe today. You didn't feel that, Heber? You thought?
Well, I think people are so tired and frustrated at this stage. They're probably thankful for something, and most of the time, people are just going to continue to prefer Fine Gael, as recent polls have continued to show.
Yeah, sure, I guess, but and I suppose they're responsive in this.
The most popular, along with Sinn Féin. So they have everything to win by these little changes. But
this is a kind of funny. It looks so sweet. They have no shoes on. It's like it's very funny. Not funny, obviously, but they have their shoes, but they're okay. Warning is 30 fined.
I suppose. But the big thing to consider, though, is tonight there was a further lockdown for 4 weeks announced in France.
Yes, and Italy, I guess.
In Italy too. Oh, I believe I didn't see that. So what the government of Ireland were saying today was that the lockdown in Ireland has had its benefits, that it has continued on and has made a difference in maintaining a level playing field of cases, and that the vaccination program needs to continue to roll out in its own course to be able to be effective.
Yeah.
And that it could be worse is what they're saying, and that the pain we're all taking by this rolling lockdown is part of course, and we have no other way but just to accept it. And
on the basis of a new ad now for the, you know, it could be worse. You know?
It could be worse. It could be worse. Well, what I love to think of in context with any discussion about the pandemic and the rest is the film that was made famous, not Contagion. In that film, 8.5 million died around the world. I believe it was. I may be incorrect on those numbers. But in that film that starred many of the Hollywood greats and became a new favorite the past year, of course, that was a total collapse of world order. Services of the governments around the world completely fell apart, and it was just bananas. And that was 8.5 million or so. And now we've had 2.5 million around the world who perished, unfortunately, from this virus. And from COVID. I mean, whatever people want to say about debates about numbers, there's no denying the fact that there has been an impact on people's health in many different ways, and people have definitively died from it and from all around it in a way that hasn't happened in quite a long time, and
including suicides.
Yeah, and the data will be reflected on in 5 to 10 years' time as we have a full historical analysis of this entire affair. And the matter is that a total breakdown of law and order, if the deaths got higher, certainly could have been there. And this is the big consideration: that was the pain worth it? Has the suffering of, say, on the small businesses, on Joe Soap, worth it? So history will judge all, I suppose, in due course.
Yeah, well, maybe quicker than that. Garda angry over vaccines. Why are they angry?
Well, the right are no longer the priority list. So,
okay.
Yeah, so the decision that was made recently was that now we have reached the next stage of the vaccine rollout. We would move to the UK style system, whereby you just have a general rollout of the vaccines, not based on categorizations of employment situations like you're a family carer or otherwise, that you would just have general rollout. Perhaps, okay, you're 84. Okay, you got the first. Maybe how about the person who's 64, then the person who's 63? That type of prioritization by the local health services all around the country. They are moving to a more generalized system of getting it rolled out that doesn't have as much bureaucracy. But invariably, that makes a lot of people unhappy, because there are those who definitely are at higher risk medically, who are on the front lines, and the scramble for the available vaccines continues, and a lot of people simply won't be happy. And there will be a debate between the efficacies of a general rollout that moves faster with the sake of avoiding returns of the Beacon Hospital scandal, whereby the CEO of that hospital decided to give vaccines that were spare to
teachers at his kids' schools.
To the kids' school. Jobs for the boys, as the tabloids described it.
Teachers who will be judging their kids. And then the VHI guy, I know he's very ill, but he got his jab ahead from the Beacon guy. So it's confusing though. Like when do you think, like you're going to take the vax, aren't you, Heber?
In due course.
When do you think have you any idea when you will be getting your first jab?
I prefer not to think about that.
Oh no, I meant to just your
in
age
general,
group, your
well, I would say maybe like the winter.
the winter of next year.
I would say the winter. I would, realistically speaking.
Good grief. I mean, if you're
But also in terms of such discussions, I mean, let's not forget the developing world does not have the vaccine rollout.
okay,
The president of Tanzania died of a heart attack, possibly COVID, after having a COVID denial policy for the last year.
yeah.
Developing world is not getting the vaccines, and Europe, America, the rest is taking what they can while they can, because they're able to leverage their relationships with the pharmaceutical companies for their vaccines first. And this is something that Mike Ryan, the emergencies head of the WHO,
The Irish guy.
yes, from County Sligo actually, has decried repeatedly. And I don't think it's really something that's talked about a lot, but does need to be mentioned in terms of where do we judge who gets what is needed first and foremost. And all of this creates a discussion around what is important in society, for who, for why, for what.
Okay, but looking at the Irish situation first, and I have to say the Tanzanian situation can be looked at completely differently from from what you just said there, Heber. I think you know what I mean. But if you're not vaccinated, right, you're a bit like, I mean, I won't be taking the vaccine if you don't mind. But we will be in the same boat effectively. Then we'll be the unvaxxed.
Yeah.
And the freedoms, Micheál Martin said last night that freedoms will be afforded to the vaccinated that won't be afforded to the unvaccinated.
Well, last week.
So until winter, then, you know.
Yeah, that's what I realistically see as what's rolling out.
Would you accept in a kind of a caste system whereby you wouldn't be allowed to go to, say, concerts or the cinema or?
I would quite dislike. I really would not like that to happen. I mean, look, first of all, even if I wanted to have the vaccine, I might be able to get the vaccine. The supply issue is there. Of
course,
it is what it is, and even then, the social dynamic reality is that there are always going to be people who will be highly suspicious of a new piece of medicine that has come out so fast that has in some ways scared people at how fast it has rolled out and causes genuine concerns. Germany only 2 days ago or so decided to stop the distribution of the AstraZeneca vaccine, and this has provoked further ire in the ECDC, the European Centers for Disease Control. Yes, and the thing is, putting it in context, Germany got their first contract on vaccines before the general EU procurement happened. That concerned the big scandal about Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission president. So the fact of the matter is, who gets the vaccine, who doesn't get the vaccine is going to be a continuous discussion for a very, very long time, because supplies will be very, very limited. And the big fear.
Would you accept, Heber, the being a second-class citizen effectively as you're unvaxxed?
Well,
reluctantly, but I mean, would it be something you wouldn't resist as such?
Well, I would be, let's just say, mildly, I would be annoyed if I wasn't able to travel some point in the autumn. I would like to have some kind of experience to celebrate the year and do something else. I would like to be able to do that, as with many other people. And because if I am not able to be vaccinated, or maybe I don't want to be vaccinated, I think that shouldn't be a full consideration. So, like the EU are coming out with a type of passport scheme, but I've looked into it since, and it is very much envisioned to be temporary, not not rolling out for the future in any definitive way.
Like the 3 week, the curve. It's that's kind of how they do these things. It's sort of incremental, and it's just temporary. And 10 years later, you're chipped.
That's a fair retort, perhaps, but I think that given how we have such a historical aversion in different tool of medicine in general, the circumstance is that we can't have that moving forward definitively. I think that there will always be people who want their own personal liberties and who want to make their own choice. The crucial aspect, though, is do we reach the level to reach herd immunity, which is at least 70% or more of the population. So the big thing is that if that is not reached, then people will die, as has been shown in California and places where parents would not vaccinate their children for measles and other preventable diseases. Children have died of such preventable diseases because they didn't want to have their children vaccinated. And of course, people would say, if they were anti-vax, such stories are bogus, etc., and all part of a grand conspiracy to enforce control. The reality is
there hasn't been issues, Heber. You can't say there hasn't been issues.
No. They're like, certainly when we look at the AstraZeneca vaccine, there certainly have been issues, but the statistical reality is that it is effectively 1 in a million of a chance to have a blood clot, and 1 in a million is less than what you would have, say, if you were a woman taking birth control pills or other types of medication. The odds of such kind of things affecting
I realize that I see that they've changed the name of AstraZeneca. It's now, I don't know.
Oh, pray tell.
I beg your pardon?
Pray tell, what is the new name?
Oh, Rexini, I don't know. It's sort of they just changed it within the last 24 hours. Actually,
that is news to me and our watchers tonight. Sounds all very sci-fi.
It sounds which?
All very sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, I mean, it was getting a bad name, so you just change it.
Well, like, I mean, we have to think of it in consideration of how it began. It came out of Oxford, and the initial talk was that it would be done on a cost basis, that it would not be something that would cost people a lot of money, or the countries concerned who would be using it. So now it has just rolled on as the key lightning rod of all public discussion, when others, such as the Sputnik vaccine, have not.
Right. Sligo Weekender, your local hero surfer Zoe rescues teen swept into sea. I suppose there's a lot of surfer stories in the Weekender. Are there? It's a source of.
That's the first one I've heard in so long. I do recall as a teenager there were tragically 3 children lost to sea at Strandhill, the surfing town. Because you can't go swimming there. The riptide is very, very strong, and it has been banned for swimming since. But the realities of the dangers are there, and there are considerable numbers of people who have unfortunately been lost. But it's fantastic to see such heroism.
Yeah, fantastic, great, good on the surfer. Now the Clare Echo have the world exclusive tomorrow. Trump is in Doonbeg.
The Clare hotelier, who lost an election. Was it the local election or the national election?
Who had his election swiped from him from under his nose. I'll just check the date on that on the newspaper. So that's the first April Fool's joke of tomorrow's papers. This is the real Clare Echo. McNamara takes aim at COVID plan. Again, healthy young people should not get vaccine yet. Michael, who did fantastic work, I think, in the COVID response committee, been a huge critic of the government's handling of everything. Daily Telegraph.
Summer vaccine passports un-British.
Yeah.
Labour leader says that Brits will not want to show a vaccine passport before entering a pub.
Yeah.
So the critical thing there is that the UK public would react very, very strongly against a system like currently is employed in Israel, where you have to show a type of vaccine passport before entering certain restaurants, pubs, areas of the city, in fact. And this is viewed by some as medical apartheid. Because now they've reached about 50% percentage of their population as vaccinated. And this means that they're able to discriminate effectively against those who are vaccinated or not. And the rollout, again, suffers from supply. They're faster than other countries. And even if you wanted to get the vaccine, you mightn't be able to get the vaccine. So you might not be able to simply go join your friends at the local pub, whatever. But if, say, you didn't want to have the vaccine or you had concerns about it, the concern is, would that mean that is how it is for the future? And will it be the case 5 years from now or more?
Yeah. But Heber, they said it was temporary. We have to believe them. They did say it was temporary. So let's trust them on that, shall we?
Well, for argument's sake, though, I mean, we trust the government on many, many things of life. It is the very nature of the state and the laws to not have certain things done. That, for example, you have a constitutional protection to the privacy of your home and not to be barged into by the police at any moment, or things like that.
I think
you trust the government will uphold the laws that it proposes.
But I mean, Starmer's saying something that Boris Johnson would normally have said, that it's a cultural thing. British don't want, your papers, no thanks, and I think the Irish as well feel that.
Oh, well, I think even the Irish are more against identity cards and anything like that, because we've never had a fascist in Irish history. We've never really come close to that at all. But in the UK, they had a big discussion about such things before in the past, about a national identity card, and they can
see that it's kind of crypto Germans, Hitler stuff. Really, the battle against the left's ideology of victimhood has only just begun, Heber.
Okay, but I just would say on the ID card front, if an ID card is done with the correct protections of GDPR and the rest of the protections that are granted to a citizen in a full, diligent review externally of the system and the process working, it does make bureaucratic, administrative, and efficiency sense to have an ID card for many, many different things.
I would say you're right there, Heber, but I mean, it's the people running the card system that's the problem,
Well, this key custodian, key custodies, who watches the watchman. This is the classical discussion of who watches those in power. This is always going to be a problem, but it is up to an active civil society to defend robust debate and robust controls with independent reviews of everything continuously and progressively to ensure that state controls are not overdone.
Okay. The Guardian, Downing Street race support. The Guardian upset that Britain isn't racist enough, or as racist as they regarded them to be, perhaps.
This is in line with what we were talking about earlier with respect to monuments and the rest. My personal opinion is that, well, Britain has a very, very broad, diverse society that has been a reflection of its empire from the centuries that have been its colonialist past and present. And the fact that We're only now perhaps seeing that reflected in a rather more visceral discussion with the monarchy about the Harry and Meghan Markle discussion about racism and the rest. Is perhaps indicative of the times we live in, because now we have a sense of looking at things in the context of, well, maybe people shouldn't be judged definitively on simply where they're from, how they look, that the character of the person means more. But this is something that is perhaps anathema to the British state definitively when it continues to be a monarchy, that by its very constitutional legal framework means that if you're born into power, you're born into power.
Yeah.
I.e., the Queen is the Queen, the King is the King, so on and so forth. That the fact, like, even the if a prime minister comes from Eton the day they get made a prime minister, if they're from Eton College, the famous school, they all get a day off as a celebration.
Right.
Because that's a tradition that has gone back centuries.
It must get a lot of days off.
They do once in a while, and this is just an example of how Britain is a monarchy. And as I look at a picture of the Queen here, we're reminded she may be a good person, a bad person her own, but it's just the very system that she was born into.
Sure.
Of power and privilege, and how that relates to race and all the rest is another conversation to be had around.
It is, and I just want to move on to this story here. John le Carre, the Irishman, the final secrets of Britain's greatest spy writer revealed. Are you? I don't know what the story is, but I remember before he died, he was interviewed by Banville and said that he had applied for an Irish passport. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he was adopted. So who knows? Maybe he's from. His mother was mother and baby home or whatever. I don't know. I can't really get into the story. I go back to it. What if we bred humans the way we do dogs? Good Lord.
Good Lord. Well, we've just talked about matters of identity, society, and the rest in a broad context. We need to remember history in our present and as we think of our future continuously. France enters third lockdown in the Independent.
Yeah.
Schools will close for at least 3 weeks, Emmanuel Macron has announced. So there we go. Another hit to the French economy, and the lockdown rolls on, continues.
And he apologized. He went on French television tonight to apologize, said he's sorry that mistakes were made. And so Daily Express, at last, victims of crime put first. The changes to the judicial system in Britain, or at least in England and Wales. Anyway.
Well, in terms of the Irish context, what matters is that recently there was a sexual assault campaigner who met with the Irish Minister for Justice, noting such things as how her counselling notes, her private discussions with her counsellor to help with her mental health recovery after a vicious sexual assault, would have those notes turned over to the defense in a criminal trial. And that just strikes me as completely, wow, mad. Because in a criminal trial, everything's put up and there are so many supports given to the defendant, versus a victim-centered first system when we have very little relatively successful convictions for sexual assaults. And this is definitely something that needs to change.
The Spectator Easter special, quite a good cover there.
Quite a good cover. Makes me think of,
He's risen.
We're moving out of the cave. We're.
Oh yeah, and that as well. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking of the Holy Week.
Well, I think the meaning was double there, John.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You're absolutely right. It's brilliant. It's even better than I thought. Financial Times: Deliveroo's debut share has plunged, damps UK tech listings ambition.
I am not surprised.
Why are you not surprised?
Well, the UK courts recently said that
Sorry.
Uber and other gig economy style companies have their those who do those services as not self-employed but employees, because they go around with the app with the logo on the back. They have control and command on them, that they met the legal test for being employees. Therefore, they would not be able to make the same dividends to their shareholders in terms of their business operations in the future. They would not be able to continue with the current status quo of being able to get their cake and eating it, of having labor, but without the privileges eroded to workers such as holidays, sick pay, etc., things like that. So that'll happen, and the likes of Deliveroo will be one of those, because they are one of the flagship gig economy companies.
I don't think those companies can afford to take on all that extra employee. You know, their business model doesn't allow for that almost. You know,
potentially no, but I mean, if they really want to stay in business, they will endeavor to stay in business, and certainly
the investors realize that. I mean, they like you say, they see that this is not a model that can sustain.
So, I mean, let's say Just Eat, for example, a competitor, uses, you pay a levy, small fee per order for the app, and that's how it earns its money as a convenience to the consumer. And the delivery drivers are employed directly to the restaurants and things like that, and it works itself out on a different basis. That is more formalized, but it still makes money. You've adverts, and they continue on. They're competitive in their own way, because it is a market that is growing.
They look after their employees. I mean, in a way that Deliveroo wouldn't. Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, yes. And I think that the market will be there, but obviously, the margins, the unicorn status that they're all looking for in terms of what the tech sector thinks that can happen more often than not, won't meet reality.
No.
So that's the way forward. The gig economy is, it's
been reshaped, isn't it? A little bit
reshaped, and if we want to look at it more harshly, we would say that it is a reaction against the should I say, a product of the declining rates of union memberships, trade union memberships broadly. That because less and less people are members of trade unions with the respective powers and privileges granted to trade unions, such as protections of workers' rights like holidays, sick pay, etc., that because of that, we have the economy and other types of industries continuing on where workers are not respected in the same way they would.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's probably, yeah, well, it's obviously a little bit more complicated than that, but yeah, you're
certainly indeed. Many different issues all throughout it, and but in terms of the value of work, how it all is, it is very much all part and parcel of the discussion.
Gibbons sued by Tylaki in 6 million sterling court case. Not sure what that's about.
He's a jockey who's losing a lot of money.
Yeah. Sorry, I got a bit of a thought he was sitting on the horse. He's not. He's sitting by it. He's getting so used to
the Daily Star.
The Daily Star. There shall not be a bedwetter. Archbishop blasts Wokes. And says that Harry and Meghan were telling porkies. I don't know what that in the interview.
Well, there was some analysis of the body language that was done throughout it that looked at how they conveyed their physical motions, all the rest of what they said, and said that potentially there was some lying there, there's that, but I think it's immaterial personally. I think that the reality is that the British royal family are what they are, and I would certainly believe a lot of what was said in the context of how we know what they're like, generally speaking, and what they are.
Yeah, you like Harry. It's a kind of ginger thing, isn't it? I mean, it is. To be fair, like you see Harry and you go, well, good on him, you know.
Well, a conspiracy theory is that Harry actually is not.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, what's the guy's name? Hewitt.
Hewitt, yeah. So Hewitt was a jockey trainer that Princess Diana fell in love with because they
I think he was
around horses and training horses. And
he served in the Gulf. He was a tank commander or something in the Gulf.
Yeah. And we look at Harry, who has had a military career of his own that has had some merit. He served incognito for about a year or two.
Yeah.
Out in Afghanistan.
Yeah, helicopters, wasn't it?
Helicopters, legit in danger of his own life. And everyone around him was sworn to secrecy because he was who he was.
Yeah, Andrew did that in the Falklands apparently as well. So I mean, we're led to believe, but my refutation to that conspiracy theory is that John Spencer, Diana's father, is a ginger, and her brother is a ginger. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, there's a ginger crept in there, you know, kind of a royal ginger.
It's the recessive gene.
It is. So, yeah. It's you need your vitamin. We need our vitamin D more than other people.
Well, in fact, John, I took part in a artistic project about the decline of the ginger gene around the world years ago.
Right.
I have an article about my experience about this. So I'll share with our readers, if you like,
Yes,
that I wrote. That's where I ended up on the front page of a Danish national newspaper.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I'll send it on, and our readers will have it.
I wrote about my gingerness actually in the 90s as well for the public, for publication. That's fantastic. No, please, maybe we can share it in the morning.
Certainly.
Heber, and how are you generally? Everything okay?
Well, I remind myself one day at a time. That is my mantra.
It is.
It is for a lot of people.
Go to the meetings and. Okay, Heber Rowan, thank you so much.